The rain had been falling for hours, drumming softly against the window panes of the small suburban house where the Martins lived. It was a quiet evening, one of those moments when the world outside seemed blurred and distant, and the only thing that truly mattered was what happened within those four walls. Yet for Emily Martin, the eldest daughter of Michael and Sarah, those four walls felt less like a sanctuary and more like a caged T21. Emily was filled with a burning restlessness. She had grown up in this modest house, in this ordinary neighborhood, surrounded by people who lived ordinary lives. And while there was nothing inherently wrong with it, she dreamed of more. Fame, recognition, the kind of dazzling success that would lift her above the invisible chains of routine. Her friends from college often teased her, calling her a big dreamer, but Emily wore the nickname proudly. Her parents, however, did not see it the same way. Michael Martin was a man of discipline, a construction worker who had built his life on steady hands and an unwavering sense of duty. His face carried the lines of years spent under the sun, and his words, though sometimes stern, always came from a place of love. Sarah, on the other hand, was softer, a school teacher whose patience and empathy had shaped both Emily and her younger brother Daniel. But even Sarah found it hard to reason with Emily lately. Their conversations, once warm and filled with laughter, had turned into heated debates about the future. "You don't understand, Mom," Emily would argue, her eyes flashing with determination. "I don't want to waste my life stuck in this town, living the same way you did, working the same kind of jobs, watching the years slip away." Sarah would sigh, brushing a strand of graying hair from her face. "Emily, dreaming isn't wrong, but dreams without responsibility can destroy you. Your father and I, we sacrificed so much to give you and Daniel stability. That should mean something." "It does," Emily insisted. "But your version of stability isn't mine. I need to chase this before it's too late." The argument reached its peak one stormy night. Michael, tired after a long day, found Emily stuffing clothes into a suitcase. She had gotten an opportunity to move to the city with a group of friends who promised connections, auditions, and a chance at the spotlight. "Emily, stop this nonsense," Michael said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "You're not ready for that life. The city isn't kind. People will use you, chew you up, and spit you out." Emily's hands trembled as she zipped the suitcase shut. "Dad, I can't stay here and rot. I'd rather take the risk than live in regret." Michael's jaw tightened. He wanted to forbid her, to lock the door if he had to. But Sarah placed a hand on his arm, her eyes filled with sorrow. "She has to make her own mistakes," Sarah whispered. "We can't keep her forever." And so, with tears in her eyes but determination in her heart, Emily left. The city greeted her with flashing lights, endless noise, and promises whispered through neon signs. For a while, it was everything she had imagined. She found work at a small cafe while auditioning for modeling gigs and local theater roles. The independence thrilled her, the sense of finally being in control of her destiny. Her social circle grew quickly. She met people who spoke the language of ambition fluently, who laughed at the idea of small-town values. Among them was Adrian, a charismatic young man who claimed to be a producer. His charm, confidence, and big promises dazzled Emily. He told her she had potential, that she only needed the right opportunities, and he could provide them. Emily believed him. Weeks turned into months. Her parents called often, leaving voicemails that Emily ignored more than she answered. At first, she told herself she was just too busy. Later, she felt ashamed. Every time Michael's steady voice or Sarah's gentle concern echoed through the phone, Emily felt the sting of guilt. She told herself she would call them when she had good news, when she had landed something worth sharing. But good news was rare. The auditions never quite worked out. The modeling gigs were small, underpaid, and sometimes degrading. Adrian's promises grew thinner, and his interest shifted once Emily began to question him. What started as flattery soon turned into manipulation, late-night calls where he demanded her attention, constant reminders that without him, she was nothing. One evening, after a particularly humiliating audition where she was dismissed within minutes, Emily returned to her small apartment to find Adrian waiting. He accused her of being ungrateful, of not appreciating his help. His words cut deeper than she expected, and when he stormed out, leaving her in tears, Emily realized how far she had strayed from the girl who once dreamed of conquering the world. Meanwhile, back home, Michael and Sarah carried the silence of Emily's absence like a wound. Daniel tried to lighten the mood, but even he noticed the way their parents sat longer at the dinner table, staring at Emily's empty chair. "Do you think she's okay?" Sarah whispered one night, her voice breaking. Michael swallowed hard, hiding his own fears. "She's stubborn, like me. But she'll learn. I just hope she learns before it's too late." As the seasons changed, Emily's life unraveled further. The cafe job barely paid the bills, and with Adrian gone, so were most of her so-called friends. The city that once seemed full of promise now felt cold and indifferent. Nights were the hardest, lying awake in a dim apartment, wondering if she had made the biggest mistake of her life. One night, she scrolled through old photos on her phone, family picnics. Her mother's smile, her father teaching her how to ride a bike, Daniel laughing at one of his own jokes. Tears blurred her vision. She hadn't realized how much she missed them, how deeply she longed for the warmth of home. But pride kept her from calling. She had left with so much confidence, so much determination to prove herself. To return defeated felt unbearable. Still, life had a way of humbling her further. When the cafe announced layoffs, Emily was among those let go. With her savings nearly gone, rent overdue, and no one to turn to, she found herself on the edge of despair. For the first time in her life, Emily understood the weight of her parents' warnings that IT was then, on a cold evening with nothing but a few dollars in her pocket, that she finally picked up the phone and dialed home. Sarah answered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Emily? Oh, thank God." Emily's tears fell freely. "Mom, I'm sorry. I messed up. I don't know what to do." There was a pause, and then Sarah said softly, "Come home, sweetheart. We'll figure it out together." Michael took the phone then, his voice steady but filled with unspoken relief. "We've been waiting for this call, Emily. Just come home." And for the first time in years, Emily allowed herself to believe that home was not a cage, but a place where love had never stopped waiting for her. The city had a way of swallowing people whole. At first, it dazzled Mark with its bright lights and endless possibilities. But as years passed, he began to notice the cracks beneath the polished surface. The skyscrapers he once admired now felt like walls closing in. The endless crowds, the clamor of traffic, the flickering neon signs, all of it pulsed with energy. But it was a restless energy that never let him breathe. In those early years, Mark believed he was unstoppable. His drive, his determination, his hunger for more. He thought those were enough to secure him a place at the top. He took meetings that stretched into the night, pitched ideas with a fire that impressed even the most skeptical investors, and accepted every invitation to dinners, parties, and networking events. His calendar was packed, his phone never silent. He thrived on the rush. For a while, the gamble paid off. A startup he joined doubled its value in less than a year. A partnership he fought for landed a contract with a wealthy client. With every achievement, his confidence grew. He rented an apartment in a high-rise with a view of the entire city, bought tailored suits, and walked with the swagger of a man who believed his destiny was in his own hands. But success has a strange way of revealing who truly stands beside you. First, Mark's circle of acquaintances seemed endless. He was invited to rooftop parties where champagne flowed like water and laughter echoed against the skyline. Men clapped him on the back, telling him he was destined for greatness. Women smiled at him with admiration, or perhaps calculation. Friends called constantly, eager to share in his victories. Yet as soon as trouble appeared, the warmth faded. The first real blow came when his most trusted partner, Daniel, made a move Mark never anticipated. They had spent months building a project together, investing not only money but countless sleepless nights. When the deal was finally ready to close, Daniel cut him out entirely, rewriting contracts behind closed doors and leaving Mark with nothing. Mark confronted him, his voice shaking with rage. "After everything we've built, you're throwing me aside like I don't matter?" Daniel's reply was calm, almost cold. "This is business, Mark. Don't take it personally. You were too slow to secure your position. That's on you." The words cut deeper than any blade. Mark had trusted him, even considered him a brother. But in the city, brotherhood had no meaning if it stood in the way of profit. That betrayal set off a chain reaction. Other partners distanced themselves, wary of associating with someone who no longer looked invincible. Invitations grew fewer. The phone that once rang day and night now sat silent for hours. The city that once seemed to open doors now slammed them shut in his face. Still, Mark refused to quit. Pride wouldn't allow it. He worked harder, pushing his body to its limits. He spent entire weekends locked in his apartment, hunched over spreadsheets and proposals, surviving on coffee and takeout. His reflection in the mirror grew thinner, his eyes hollow. Even love slipped through his fingers. For a time, he thought he had found someone. Sophia, a woman whose laughter once softened his hardest days. But she grew tired of competing with his ambition. One night, as he buried himself in work again, she stood by the door, suitcase in hand. "You don't even see me anymore," she said quietly. "You're married to this city, to your dream. But dreams don't hold you when you're tired. Dreams don't sit with you when you're sick. One day you'll realize what you've lost, but by then, I won't be here." The door closed, and Mark didn't chase her. He simply turned back to his computer, though his chest ached with a heaviness he couldn't name. Loneliness wrapped around him like a cloak. Nights became unbearable. He would stand by the window of his apartment, staring down at the glittering maze of streets. Cars sped by, carrying people home to families, to friends, to lives filled with meaning. Mark had none of that. He had victories and failures, numbers and contracts. But no one waiting for him at the end of the day. It was during one of those silent nights that the letter arrived. A real letter, not an email. The envelope was creased, the handwriting uneven. He recognized it instantly, his mother's. "Dear Mark, it has been too long since we heard your voice. We don't ask about your work or your success. We only hope you are healthy and safe. Remember, you will always have a home here. We wait for you always." The words broke something inside him. He pressed the letter to his chest and sank into a chair. He could almost smell the kitchen of his childhood, the bread his mother baked, hear the sound of his father's slow but steady footsteps. 1,000 memories flooded him. Summer evenings on the porch, the laughter of neighbors, the warmth of belonging. For a brief moment, he thought of returning. He imagined walking through the familiar door, his mother's tears of joy, his father's proud but quiet embrace. But then pride reared its head. "Not yet," he told himself. "I can't come back empty-handed. I'll return when I've proven myself. They deserve a son who succeeded, not one who failed." So he folded the letter and tucked it away, burying not only the paper but also the yearning in his heart. But his body could not be silenced as easily. The headaches grew unbearable. His hands trembled when he tried to hold a cup. His chest tightened after climbing a single flight of stairs. When he finally collapsed at his desk one evening, gasping for air, a colleague rushed him to the hospital. The doctor's words were blunt. "You are pushing yourself toward collapse. Your heart is under immense strain. If you don't slow down, you risk permanent damage." Mark laughed bitterly. "Slow down? If I slow down, I lose everything." The doctor met his gaze with quiet seriousness. "And if you don't, you lose your life. Then what will everything mean?" The words haunted him long after he left the hospital. He lay awake in his apartment, staring at the ceiling, unable to ignore the emptiness pressing down on him. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside, he was a hollow shell, fighting a battle he was no longer sure he wanted to win. Every letter from his parents remained unopened now, stacked neatly in a drawer. He couldn't bear to read them, because each word was a reminder of what he had left behind, and what he was too proud to reclaim. The finish line he had been chasing all his life seemed further away than ever. And for the first time, Mark wondered if he had been running in the wrong direction all along. Mark's downfall did not happen in a single dramatic moment. It came slowly, like water seeping through cracks in stone, wearing him down little by little. Each day blended into the next, the glow of his computer screen replacing the light of the sun, the hum of his phone replacing the sound of human voices. He became a man surrounded by machines and papers, not people. There were moments when he still tried to convince himself he was winning. He would look at the balance sheets, the property he had acquired, the deals he had signed, and whisper, "See, you're not failing. You're proving yourself." But the numbers, no matter how high they climbed, never filled the hollow space inside. His body betrayed him before his mind was willing to surrender. The headaches worsened. The fatigue became unbearable. Some mornings he could not even rise from bed without feeling the world spin. The once sharp mind that had charmed investors now stumbled over simple calculations. His reflection in the mirror was that of a stranger, hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, a body that looked older than his years. Then came the collapse that IT was late at night, as usual. He was typing furiously at his desk, trying to salvage another failing deal, when his chest constricted like a vice. He gasped, clutching his heart, and collapsed to the floor. The glow of the city through the window blurred as darkness closed in. When he awoke, he was in a hospital bed. Machines beeped steadily around him, a sharp scent of antiseptic filling the air. A doctor stood at his side, expression grave. "You were very close this time," the doctor said. "Your body is warning you in the strongest terms possible. If you continue like this, you may not get another chance." Mark closed his eyes. For the first time, he felt the true weight of mortality. All the nights of ambition, all the years of sacrifice, what had they brought him? An empty apartment, a broken body, a heart full of regrets. The silence of the hospital room gnawed at him. There were no visitors, no friends, no family rushing to his side. Not a single person knew he had collapsed. The city, which he had given his soul to, had not even noticed his fall. That IT was in that silence that he remembered the letters they as soon as he was discharged. Weak and trembling, he returned to his apartment and opened the drawer where they were stacked. One by one, he unfolded them, reading the words his parents had written over the years. Each letter was filled with warmth, concern, and love. None mentioned money, success, or status. Every line reminded him of what truly mattered. Tears blurred his vision as he whispered aloud, "What have I done? I left them for this. For nothing." The next morning, for the first time in over a decade, he booked a ticket home. The journey back felt unreal. The train rolled past fields, rivers, and towns that reminded him of a world he had almost forgotten. The closer he came, the more his chest ached, not from sickness, but from longing. When he finally stepped off the train in his hometown, he felt small again. The station looked exactly as it had when he left, though the paint was chipped and the benches older. He carried no suitcase of riches, no trophies of victory, only himself, weary and broken. The walk to his parents' home was slow. Every step stirred memories. The schoolyard where he once played, the bakery where he and his friends spent afternoons, the old oak tree where he had carved his name as a boy. His heart pounded not from illness this time, but from fear. Would they welcome him back? Or would they see him as a failure who had abandoned them? Finally, he reached the familiar gate. It creaked as he pushed it open. The house looked smaller than he remembered, but the garden was neatly kept, flowers blooming despite the season's chill. His hands trembled as he knocked on the door. It opened slowly. His mother stood there, hair grayer, face lined with years, but eyes still full of the same warmth. For a moment, she simply stared. Then tears filled her eyes. "Mark," she whispered, voice breaking. "You're home." Before he could speak, she pulled him into her arms. He clung to her, sobbing like a child. His father appeared in the doorway, slower, friendlier than Mark remembered, but his presence as steady as ever. He placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. "Welcome back, son," he said softly. No anger, no reproach, only love. That night, for the first time in years, Mark sat at a table filled with warmth, not with contracts or laptops, but with food cooked by his mother's hands, laughter, and silence that felt safe. That he confessed everything. The pride, the ambition, the betrayals, the loneliness, the collapse. He told them of his fear of returning, of the shame that had chained him. His parents listened without judgment. When he finished, his father spoke. "Success is not measured by the world's applause, Mark. It is measured by the love you give and the peace you carry in your heart. You chased shadows and forgot the light that was always here." Those words sank deep into Mark's soul. He realized then that the years he thought he had wasted were not the true loss. The true loss would have been never coming back at all. The following weeks were difficult. His health required rest. His mind resisted slowing down. But with his parents' care, he began to heal. He took walks in the fields, breathed in the fresh air, reconnected with neighbors who still remembered him. Slowly, the restless fire of ambition that once consumed him was replaced with a gentler flame, the desire to live. Not just to achieve that, he found ways to use his skills for his community, helping local businesses, mentoring young people who dreamed of leaving just as he once did. But this time, he taught them something different. Do not forget where you come from. Ambition without love will leave you empty. Success without family will feel like failure. Years later, Mark would look back on his journey not with pride for the deals he once made, but with gratitude for the lesson he had learned. He understood now the truth of the saying his father repeated, "What goes around comes around." He had left his family chasing glory, and the world had repaid him with emptiness. But when he returned, humbled, life gave him what he truly needed: love, belonging, and peace. His story became one he often shared with others, not as a tale of failure, but as a testament to the power of forgiveness and the unbreakable bond of family. And whenever he told it, he ended with the words, "Do not wait until it is too late to see who truly loves you." Because in the end, when the noise fades and the lights dim, it is not the city, not the success, not the money that will stand beside you. It is the ones who loved you before you ever tried to prove yourself.